to Sudbury News Talk.
I want to show you something.
Stand by.
On the morning shift.
Anything
could happen.
Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.
Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift. I'm AJ Walsh. Glad to be here with you. Glad that you're here with us. We're live at CKLU 96.7 FM right here in Greater Sudbury on the radio. You can also stream us at cklu.ca. Just click on the Radio Player Canada app and you can stream us anytime. You could also download the same Radio Player Canada app, take us with you and listen to us anywhere, anytime on your favorite device. And we're also audio streaming live at facebook.com/Sudbury News, youtube.com/Sudbury News. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, and mainly follow because, mainly comment, mainly follow. But yeah, you got to, like and subscribe and follow in order to be a part of Sudbury News' community if that's something that is important to you. I know it'd be important to us to build the community. Not sure what happens on the other side on platforms a lot of times. I think there's things going on where I don't know if they allow everybody. I know even my wife was liking the channel and the Facebook page over and over, and it wouldn't show up that she actually liked it or followed it. For the longest time, we had to click unfollow, follow, unfollow several times. And I know that many people have said the same thing. We've looked at different cases of that. But make sure that you're following. As long as it says that you're following, that's great, and we really appreciate that. And it looks like we're as the government's Bill C-11 and C-18 have come out with the Online News Act, all of our Facebook news in Sudbury from the local outlets are not being shared anymore, not being there. Google also said it's not going to do that. However, when I go on Google, it does show different headlines from different news outlets locally. So I'm not sure what's going on there. And actually, I think that's at the end of the day, no one's really sure how all this is going to unfold or who's going to come out at the end of it able to share their news online in Canada. But that's where we're at. So welcome, whether you're from Sudbury or around the area, the immediate area, or you're joining us from somewhere else, either in Canada, the US, or around the world. We enjoy talking about things locally, but also things that affect us abroad. And so that would also possibly, have something that you might be interested in our conversation. So please, if you have something that you wanted to say, comment, and we'll make sure to say the comments. I'll do my best to say the comments. That way, those who are listening on the radio right here in Sudbury will have a chance to hear what others are saying about the topics that we're talking about. But if I'm not able to, it's just because the conversation's moved on and now we're talking about something else and we have other things to cover, right? So I'll do my best. And with that, good morning, Judy. First in line again. Glad that you're with us. Hope you're having a great Wednesday or hump day. Monique, good morning. Smiley sunshine emoji. Always great to see that. Good morning, Sudbury. Denise, good morning, everyone. Also smiling sunshine. Really does do the soul good. Belinda, and speaking of that, positive statement here. Good morning. If we have no peace, it's because we have forgotten that we belong to each other. Well, thank you very much again. And a heart emoji to go with that. Thank you very much, Belinda. And Danica, good morning. Happy hump day. Sunshine emoji again. Vin, morning to you. And hope you're having a great hump day. Lynn, good morning from McCarroll. And Maurice, good morning with a sunshine emoji. Glad to have you with us. And I know Natalie, who commented on the show about the speed initiatives that Sudbury's been taking to basically let us know on her end, she's doing her best to satisfy all people involved says that this part of the segment sounds like Romper Room. You remember when they would have that the circle there on a stick, and they would say, "Oh, I see you, Jimmy," and "I see you, Sarah," and all those things. So, anyways, that was kind of comical and reminds me of that too. But anyways, that's a little for those of us who remember Romper Room. Good morning from Espanola. How we carry the load matters for sure. Sunshine emoji as well. So even though it doesn't look like too much sun out there at the moment where I'm coming from, we're going to have a sunny day regardless. So let's dive right into it. We'll start with some weather. We'll be back with news headlines from Sudbury, and then also we'll be continuing, which we didn't have a chance to get to yesterday, for the series that we're having on Jordan Peterson, basically fighting for free speech in Canada as he is being mandated to take re-education on how he's supposed to conduct himself online. And so we're following that. But we have an interview that he's done many years ago speaking about what's brought us to this point in our society. And it's basically it's an ideology that's founded in Marxism and postmodernist theory of how we should conduct ourselves as a society. But anyways, we'll let Jordan Peterson speak for himself later in the show. That's coming towards the end. So stick around if you're interested in that. And if you're interested in weather, it's coming right now. And Sudbury weather brought to you by sudburyweather.ca. Currently, it's 20 degrees Celsius. There is a heat warning as well, I think, for the beginning of today, and then it's going to be going away. So let's see. Today, mix of sun and showers. A mix of sun and cloud, 60% chance of showers. Late this afternoon with a risk of thunderstorms, fog patches dissipating this morning, wind becoming 20 kilometers. Gusting to 40 near noon, high of 29, but with the humidex, it is 37. That's why we have the heat warning. UV index is 7 or high. Tonight, showers with risk of thunderstorms, local amount 15 to 25 millimeters. Wind becoming north 20 kilometers before morning, low of 14 tonight. Thursday, cloudy with 60% chance of showers. Risk of thunderstorms, wind, again, gusting to 40. 16 is our high. Tomorrow, as you can see, it's a lot cooler tomorrow than it is today. But let's look at our heat warning, just in case it says something a little bit different. It's ending tonight. So daytime highs will be very atypical for September, reaching 31 degrees Celsius. A sharp cool down is expected in the wake of the cold front tonight. Hot and humid air can also bring deteriorating air quality and can result in air quality health index approaching the high risk category. So watch for, not only your own health, your breathing, but also for others that have a hard time in this type of temperature and humidity. So Thursday, as we said, 6% chance of showers, high of 16. Friday, 17 and cloudy. Saturday and Sunday, Saturday being sunny and 21 degrees, and Sunday being a mix of sun and cloud with a high of 20. Mix of sun and cloud for your Monday and Tuesday as well. 17 and 16 are your highs. So look at your satellite over us. The clouds are rolling in with that cold front coming down, bringing some precipitation with it. You can see from the northwest as usual. But for now, we just have clouds on our doorstep ready to come in and change our weather as part of that cold front. That's your Sudbury weather. Brought to you by sudburyweather.ca. We'll be back with news headlines from Sudbury and area and our deep dive into the free speech situation in Canada right after this. Okay, a few more people jumping on here this morning, and glad to have you. But first, Belinda says, finally, a win. Housing Minister Steve Clark has resigned after he was found that he broke the ethics rule in Doug Ford's Greenbelt land swap scandal. Sounds juicy. Yes, he has resigned. And I guess Doug Ford has not resigned. I guess that's a scapegoat enough for the situation. And yeah, that has definitely needs to happen more often as ministers and politicians in general can, be held accountable for their actions, right? If they do things that the public, doesn't agree with and they break ethics according to inquiries and, reports from people like ethics commissioners and auditor generals and things like that. There's a reason why we have those people, and the right thing to do would be to resign. Now, what's going to happen after that? Is everything just going to stay the same? They said they're going to look into it, but while they're looking into it, they're going to continue construction. So it doesn't sound like, as a whole, it's going to do much for what's going on in the Greenbelt. But I guess optically, people say, well, a head rolled anyways. Some heads are rolling over it, and that could appease some people in the public. But is it actually going to change anything? That's what we want to know as well. But good morning, Brian. Happy Hump Day, Nickel City campers. Thanks, Brian, for the great get-together yesterday, too. I really appreciate that. And let's see, hopefully we'll be able to have you on the show talking about various things in the future, in the near future. Vin says, Dowling, Onaping, Levac Mixed League softball tourney starts today. Awesome. Right on. Hopefully the tournament goes ahead without any glitches, but it's going to be a hot one for those people on the field today for sure. Take precautions and make sure to bring a lot of liquids. Denise says, I don't like when they say take care of your breathing, as reports of bad air making people sick. Yeah, definitely. Yes. There's lots of things going on out there. Other than just the hot weather, for sure. You need to protect yourself from that as much as you can. Vin, he was removed. So he was removed, but were the politics reversed? No, exactly my point. Case in point there. So that's provincially what's kind of happening, the hot topic. And locally yesterday we talked about the speed situation. They're putting those bollards up around the city. They got plans for 10 more than what you've seen already. And those are those things that are sticking up in the middle of the road, trying to help people slow down. Today is the official day of school, back to school. School buses are out on the roads. Little ones are, getting off those buses and on those buses. And speed is definitely something that we should, be mindful of as we're traveling, and be safe always, and be attentive and be present while we're driving and less distracted. But the city has also made, instituted measures where it's a 40 kilometer zone. It's now a 30 kilometer zone. I thought I heard something too where it was 50. It's now 40, but again, I'd have to go and look into that. They're talking about photo radar in certain sections. So that way, if you're going 1 kilometer over, there's a penalty, a fine, and then onwards and upwards from there. So if you're going 50 over, obviously, you're going to be dinged a lot more than if you're going 1 kilometer over. But so what's going to happen there is people are going to be going below the speed limit, which a lot of people say, well, yes, it's called the speed limit for a reason, and you should go, anything under there is fine, because it's a speed limit. When I drive, the speed, even the speed limit, it's very, it's not fast at all. There's plenty of time to make decisions, driving decisions, for safety purposes. But I find if you're trying to get somewhere and traffic, is heavy, you also have to permit people to get where they're going in a city as well, to keep the economy going and to just allow traffic flow, people to get from one place to another. It's one thing to be safe, but then you have to allow people options to get where they're going in a timely manner as well. So, okay, you got one side down with the city, and then they also have the cameras at the traffic lights prohibiting people from going through red lights. So you remember a yellow back in the day, the light would start to go yellow and you would accelerate. So that way you can get through the yellow light and save, X amount of time getting to where you're going. Now you're slamming on the brakes because you see yellow. You don't want to be going through that light as it turns red because you'll be charged over $300, right? So that's, I guess good in terms of a revenue maker for the city. It's good if you want people to adhere to those traffic lights more and be more aware and not try and run the yellow. And again, however, mixed with all these other things with the bollards and the speed bumps and the photo radar, speed traps, automated, and the lights. Okay, so we got that down. So now we need to build more roads that don't impede drivers so they can actually get around the city in a timely manner, like you would in a city like Toronto, let's say. But where's the money going to come from for that, right? It's a lot more expensive to build infrastructure and roads to help people to get from point A to point B and stop inhibiting their travels, because you're making them drive through cities because they don't have another option. Sure, we have the Maley extension, which is great. It almost didn't go ahead. I'm so grateful for it because we need more of that to get around the city. Someone who's owned a delivery business, myself, knows the importance of getting around, and that was my livelihood. And it was so frustrating trying to get around in rush hour and in this city in particular, and trying to avoid all the potholes and stop signs, come to a complete stop, because if you didn't, there's a police officer there. If you didn't come to an exact stop and you did somewhat a rolling stop, they'd be right there to give you a ticket. And, and 3 a.m. delivering, you had to wait for the red light. You couldn't go through it. So people not thinking of traffic flow and trying to keep it going. It's mostly just to slow it down. And it's great, but you got to keep in mind the other side as well. You need traffic flow. In a city, you're going to have a lot of frustrated people, frustrated citizens, because how much time do we spend in our cars getting back and forth from work and other things, right? So you're going to have a lot of unhappy people, and then it's going to create other things, and there's a spin-off from that. So I don't know if the city's really thinking through all of those things as well. We might have to take our foot off the gas, no pun intended, on some of these initiatives and really think them through a little bit more. Belinda says, Vin, you guys are speaking to each other here, and I don't have the ability to know if you guys are having a conversation or not through my technology. But at this point, they don't. They don't. Any of these devices to impede traffic. The potholes accomplish all that on their own, for sure, definitely. I heard Ford's gonna sell more and go ahead and sell more. Yeah, for sure, of the green belt area, for sure. That's what I heard as well. And a different Denise says, I'm told you're okay if you enter the light when it's yellow, then it turns red. Yeah, that is true. The ticket will happen only if you enter the intersection when the light is already red, and you are right on that, for sure. But I just remember, again, the culture of driving back in the day was you see a light turn yellow, you're doing everything you can to go through that yellow light, right? So I made that mistake coming. I went to the States for a couple of years and was living down there and came back to Sudbury, and a lot of things changed in a couple of years. I noticed the snow removal wasn't as good as it was before I left. They were leaving it longer and doing less snow removal than they did, and salting and sanding and all that from previously before I left. So I'm not sure what decisions were made there. And it continues to kind of get less and less as we move on. I guess trying to save money. But I also noticed the idea of the yellow means red. I guess the teaching of our young drivers, that's what they started to be told, was yellow actually means red. You see yellow, that means you stop and not you try and get through it. Not that we were taught to try and go through yellow lights before, but I think that was the culture. All right. So one more comment here. Belinda, all these devices that they want to impede traffic, I think is going to amount to a lot of people who are going to have road rage. For sure, but just don't speed with your road rage, because that'll make it even worse. Because, yeah, and I think it was Billy yesterday who made the point that it's also an attack on people at a lower income level. So let's say you make $40,000 a year and you get one of these tickets. That does a lot more harm to you than it does to, let's say, you make $250,000 a year and you get a ticket, right? So it seems to be, it's not really helping any of our people at the lower end of the spectrum of income. Also, the climate response, the taxation, the carbon tax, that also affects people at a lower income level more than people who make more money, right? So I make $250,000, the gas goes up 20 cents a liter overnight. It affects me far less than it does somebody who makes $40,000 a year. That's the margin of whether this person is able to afford to pay rent or groceries or whatever, right? Whereas someone who makes $250,000 a year, they can still get the same groceries and go, on the same trips and do all the same things. It doesn't impede their lifestyle one bit. Yellow should mean proceed with caution. Yeah, that's always the middle of the road, right? So, but yeah. So now for me it means stop. Now I'm not taking any chances because of that one time. I was just going with traffic, and my mind was on my daughter being in the hospital and picking her up from there, and a bit of a crisis situation. I was just kind of in a fog and just going with traffic, and sure enough, my wife says, "You just went through a red light." I was like, "What? I'm going with traffic." And I got the ticket in the mail. It had the picture of me and someone else going through the red light together. So I guess we both had the same outcome. This is Brian, the city of Toronto. In the city of Toronto, if you're caught in the grid on either a red or yellow, you get a ticket. Yeah, and back in the day, yellow was often taught to proceed with caution, for sure. But again, I've talked to a lot of young people. They're told yellow means you start stopping. You stop. So, yeah, I know that's taught for a fact. Personally, I don't drive. But you do have a cool vehicle, Brian, the one that I saw you driving yesterday. And I'm definitely interested in one of those for sure. Okay, so let's look at some news headlines here before we get ahead of ourselves. Dowling killer still waiting for sentencing date. This is from the murder that took place, last year. So still waiting for sentencing date. This is from Sudbury Star. He pleaded to manslaughter after beating a senior to death with a hammer. Not cool. So for more on that, you can read that in the Sudbury Star. School board grappling with AI use in the classroom. Former policies still elusive. So some of the largest boards across Canada will begin the new school year without formal policies for the use of artificial intelligence in the classroom, despite concerns about how the technology will impact learning and academic integrity. So, the chat GPT kind of idea, right? You're doing a test or whatever, and, you got your I don't know if you're able to have your phone and whatever, you're able to have a laptop and you open another window with ChatGPT, you ask it a question, it tells you the answer, or it does your homework for you. You go home and you get the assistance of ChatGPT helping your homework. So there's no policies in place. You'd think they would at least come up with a simple policy of you're not supposed to use ChatGPT. That would be good for starters, at least. But anyways, that's going to be an ongoing thing, and we'll continue to talk about that. Night Owl Lounge releases jazz series lineup. The next in jazz series is Christian Overton, who performs September 14th as the Jazz Festival is going on currently. Let's see here. So the Night Owl Restaurant is a lounge on 158 Elgin Street, and it hosts weekly live jazz music every Thursday. Guests from Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, Winnipeg, and New York playing instruments such as the upright bass, guitar, trumpet, trombone, saxophone, and keyboards are joined by local talent at our weekly events. Tickets are available through the nightowl.vip or just nightowl.vip. The Night Owl Facebook events page. Here's the upcoming lineup, so you can catch that. This is from Sudbury.com. I think it's all part of the Jazz Festival going on here in Sudbury. You listen to CKLU, we have a ongoing commercial that talks about the Jazz Festival. Police investigating a shooting on Baker Street. Again, that comes from Sudbury Star. The victim of a shooting Tuesday on Baker Street sustained life-threatening injuries from a single gunshot wound, Greater Sudbury Police said in an update on their Twitter account. For more information on that, again, sudburystar.com. I guess the September 4th CARP General Meeting, they're going to be talking about some Sudbury history. Meeting features tour of Red Oak Villa and a presentation, History Explorer, from Paul Haynes. So if you want to check that out, it's the CARP General Meeting, September the 14th. That story also on Sudbury.com. CBC Sudbury. Two medical students say they want to serve their communities in Northern Ontario. This is great news. This is the reason why we have a medical school in Sudbury, was to have people kind of stick around and serve our more remote areas, serve Sudbury, serve Northern Ontario. Nicholas Lambert and Madison Campbell are starting their medical studies at Nossum University this year. Both are from Northern Ontario and want to practice medicine in the region. More on that from CBC Sudbury. SudburyStar.com. Sudbury woman had big dreams before a hit-and-run driver cut her down. This is Andel Javini Rajendra Prasad. Had fallen in love with the city and planned to move here with her family from India. But let's see here. A little bit more on that. She had big dreams when she came to Sudbury several years ago to pursue her master's degree in computer science at Laurentian University. But on the evening of February 1st, 2022, just 2 months away from graduating, Prasad was struck and killed by a vehicle while walking on Walford Road. I called a number of times and she didn't pick up, recalled her mother. And in a victim impact statement read by the Assistant Crown Attorney, Matthew Ansell, via Zoom link, I started to have a bad feeling. The statement was entered during a sentencing hearing Tuesday for Thomas Schell of Sault Ste. Marie, the driver who struck her daughter and fled the scene. Her death was the second major loss to occur in her married life, her husband having died in 2014. The sudden loss of Andel, meanwhile, so affected her brother that he could not sleep for months. He died from cardiac arrest in September 2022. That is a very sad story. Tragedy and a lot of tragic story and a lot of tragedy in this particular family's life. For more on that, again, that's SudburyStar.com. You could read more on that story. Good morning, Mona. Thanks for joining us today. Hope you're having a great hump day this Wednesday. Okay, so Denise, let's hope someone has balls to cut China's cameras down and disable them. Okay, that would be interesting if someone's able to do that. CSIS tried to tell us, but Trudeau won't allow that right. Okay, yeah, we're still currently... Did you know we don't have an ethics commissioner for Canada right now? It's still the seat is vacant, and any complaints that come in, you know, like we saw the effectiveness of what happened in Ontario with the ethics commissioner here, and the report saying they broke ethics laws, or they basically didn't adhere to ethics standards. Having now resigned, the minister resigning from that. Now, Canada does not currently have an ethics commissioner, so yeah, I guess it's anything goes federally, right? So we're still wondering if we're going to hold a public inquiry after that big debacle with the special rapporteur investigating China's meddlings in our country. So what's going on there, we don't know. There's no ethics commissioner. That should tell you something. I don't know, just me. So no transparency there. We got integrity commissioners in our halls, though. There you go. I think the citizens themselves, know what's going on if you're not biased and it's not something that no commissioner, no investigations. Correct. And there's a backlog, too, of the ones that weren't currently being looked into. So didn't the former one have to resign due to conflicts of interest? Because it seems like the current administration wants to keep putting people in that are just going to kind of be yes people and just kind of rubber stamp anything that they want to have happen. Belinda says, how convenient for the Trudeau government. A truthful person doesn't mind being questioned, but a liar does. For sure, 100%. And that's I heard CKLU, there's an interview with an art critic the other day. It was a repeat expose on an art critic. And his motto was basically he'd like to go down failing, just being himself, doing what he feels he knows is right, rather than being a success, being a sellout, a success as a sellout. He'd rather be a failure, but doing it the way, his conscience is not going to impede him from sleeping at night, kind of thing. So, and I think I'm adopting that. I'd rather fail being myself than succeed being someone else. Truthful rather than lying, for sure. Former commish was Dominic LeBlanc's sister-in-law. Correct, exactly. Little conflict of interest there. I'm sure they will be highly paid and simple-minded, so Trudeau likes them. LOL. Yeah, we have to question who he installs in different places if you're taking what he's done in the past, right? So let's see here. A gang tries out little ball hockey. Northern Ontario CTV News on this week's Explore the North. Gang from Pure Country Radio try their hand at ball hockey. So there's Coop there. If you want more on that, we share the story on Sudbury.news. It's the aggregator for CBC Sudbury, Northern Ontario CTV News, and Sudbury.com and Sudbury Star. All comes on Sudbury.news' news aggregator on our homepage. You can check that out. Firefighter calendar helps Cancer Center. The annual calendar featuring Sudbury's firefighters is back. A popular item that raises monthly money to help fight cancer. And this story, that story was from Northern Ontario CTV News. Also from CTV is this story, which surprised me, that empty shelves at Sudbury's food bank. Times are tough at the food bank in Greater Sudbury. Where officials say rising demand has almost emptied their supplies. So with that, I'm actually interested. So I didn't know they were facing that type of problem at the food bank. I thought that things might be kind of under control there, but that doesn't surprise me with the economy the way it's going, with the inflation the way it's rising, and nobody's making any more money. So what we talked about with the carbon tax and inflation, and going out and trying to drive and go somewhere, and getting automated tickets in the mail kind of thing. It seems like everything you do, it's kind of like cutting your income out. So nobody seems to be helping anyone's income, but Sudbury Food Bank is trying to help us. But their shelves are empty. So let's just check in with CTV's coverage of this, and we'll be back right after that.
Sudbury's Food Bank is currently experiencing the highest use it's ever seen, and it's been running for 35 years. Administrators say right now shelves are looking empty and supply is running pretty low.
They say the food bank is still busy supporting its various member agencies, but these days it's giving those groups less food than usual. Details from CTV's Alana Everson.
There are empty pallets here at the Sudbury Food Bank warehouse that are normally stacked with food. Many boxes that normally hold canned goods are also empty. Officials say times are tough.
The current situation at the food bank right now is we're pretty much out of food. We've got a little bit left. Basically, there's not enough food coming in, and there's more and more people using the service. That's just the bottom line. There's no way to sugarcoat it.
Exxon says the Sudbury Food Bank is still helping all 44 member agencies, but there is less food to go around.
We haven't stopped anything at the front line. People are still getting served when they come through the front line of one of the 44 member agencies. It's just that there's a little bit more, we have to be a little bit more stricter about it. You might be getting 2 cans of vegetables as opposed to 3, but you're still getting the service. Like we're not sending people away with nothing. We're just having a little bit of a difficult time.
Officials at the food bank say the organization is trying hard to secure more food through donations or to buy it at special rates for nonprofits, as the need for help continues to increase.
The reasons could be endless. I mean, nobody's got any extra money anymore. Nobody is in a position where they can help us and take care of their families too, especially with back to school and such like that. Everybody's still trying to do the best they can. People are still making donations, but it's just not where it needs to be.
Officials say the food bank is now helping a record number of people, with well over 17,000 requests for help each month, with no sign of that changing.
17,000 requests for help each month. Wow. So let's say Sudbury's population is 170,000-ish, right? It's right around that. 17,000 people a month wanting assistance from the food bank. So there you go. You do with what you will with that number. So is that a sign of a city that's, in good shape? Yeah, if you think 17,000 people out of 170,000 people needing the food bank is a sign that we are doing well, then that's good. Then you're entitled to that opinion. And if you don't, you're also entitled to that opinion as well. It is what it is. So it's a figure. Is it a sign of where we're at? Who knows? In the last 3 years, I've all been standing our ground, speaking our truth, and taking a side, despite knowing that we could all be failing and losing income. For sure, yes, failing, that goes back to my comment about failing, being myself rather than being someone else and succeeding. A new interim ethics commissioner was appointed last week. Okay, good, thank you. An interim ethics commissioner. Why can't we just have an ethics commissioner? Why do we need an interim one? Like, what's going on? Like, can we look back in history and see that we've had this issue before federally? Have we ever been? It's the longest I know we've been without an ethics commissioner. I think they had to kind of put somebody in there, because you can't just have nobody, right? So this interim one, what's going to be accomplished? So we'll see how many cases this interim one takes on. And yeah. But I guess for optics, just like the heads rolled in the province, right? So we got rid of the housing minister. Let's see if anything changes. Let's see if this interim ethics commissioner will handle any cases and what will come from that. Why don't local grocery stores donate to the food bank? They throw out so much. Yeah, it's a legal issue, I believe. So if anybody gets sick from anything that's out of date or whatever, then it comes back on the food bank, which then would come back on the grocery store. So because of the legalities of our world, unfortunately, people being sued and things like that, it stops people from doing good things. It's like you stop on the side of the road to try and help someone, and then they sue you because you didn't help them properly, and they say you caused some damage. You know, people don't help people anymore. It's just the way that it goes. It's kind of terrible. More will join over the winter if they don't freeze. Going into the winter weighs heavy on my heart, mine as well. That was Denise, and wow, simply wow. Those food bank numbers are astonishing for sure. Former CRTC chairman Conrad von Finkenstein. I was just kind of going off on a limb there. Finkenstein. Awesome. There you go. So CRTC chairman will be the interim ethics commissioner. We'll see how that goes. Brian says, I think our food supply in general is in danger, but that's another topic, and it is in danger, and it is another topic for sure. We'll see a shortage of at least 40% shortage of food over this winter from all of the policies, the government policies from around the world, not just Canada, with our farmers. You know, they were trying to stop farmers in Kelowna from watering their crops because of the fires. They were saying it was contaminated. So the government was going around telling farmers they couldn't water their crops. That's what they were concerned about with the fires, going around telling farmers they can't water their crops. So again, incompetence or on purpose, I have no idea. But we're going to face, through all of these climate change policies and things, the attack on our farmers. First of all, it's almost impossible to make any money farming these days. And then it's being bought up by elites like Bill Gates owns, I don't know, he's the largest landowner in the United States now, a lot of farmland stuff, and he's not growing anything on it. So that tells you something. So you're going to be experiencing a food shortage very shortly. So inflation with food shortage, inflation means food prices are already going to be going up. And then you add on shortage with it, supply and demand issues. And now it's hyperinflation through the roof. The rich can still afford it though. The rich can afford it, and it may even affect them to some extent to say, holy crap, why am I paying $20 for a lemon? But it is what it is. At least they can still afford it. It's the people of the lower income bracket that won't be able to afford food. And they will be going to the food bank, and then it's like a snake that's eating its tail. You ever see that logo before, the snake that's just eating its own tail going around in a circle? So our society is that right now. It's just basically eating itself up. He's appointed for the next 6 months. Perfect. I wonder how many cases he'll be able to go through beginning to end in 6 months. Probably 0. Okay, so the departmentalized to sound important. Oh, they departmentalized to sound important. That's Denise. They had to create more garbage to blame us for cow flagellants, for sure. Preserve your dry food and prep. I would say that's always a good thing. Prepare for a rainy day, right? So we've been talking about why we're in the predicament we're at. Why does it seem like government is either incompetent or doing things on purpose that don't necessarily help its citizens that they're elected to help, whether it's on municipal, provincial, federal, or wherever you are in your country, on the local, regional, or federal levels in your country. Why? What's going on? Why doesn't it seem like they're making good, sound decisions and policies that are, come around to help us, not give us numbers like 17,000 out of 170 people needing to go to a food bank. In Sudbury, I know at least we have the highest opioid death per capita rate. Is it in Canada? Here. And our downtown looks like a zombie movie, basically, half the time, because of the policies that we have to give out free drugs and then have a safe place for people to come and do the drugs. And they're not all homeless people, by the way. Some of them are functioning professionals, as was stated. But either way, that will, I guarantee you, if that person continues to be a functioning addict, the functioning idea will begin to dissipate very, very shortly. And they won't be functioning anymore. They'll just be an addict and could very well end up in the same place that a lot of people who are experiencing homelessness will end up. So again, it's the snake eating its tail, right? It's going to get worse and worse. The snake is just going to get until it's just a head left eating its own head. I don't know if that's impossible to do, but you can't just have a head, it just won't survive. So society's not going to survive. So here you go. So speaking of this, and in a fight for freedom of speech, Jordan Peterson here wanting to be, so the Ontario College of Psychologists is trying to get Jordan Peterson to come and be re-educated on how to speak in public. Basically, he's not, I guess, intelligent enough to know how to make posts and how to speak his mind or who to vote for. He needs to be re-educated, and obviously he's dangerous to the college. He's dangerous to people. He's dangerous to society. He needs to be re-educated. But he himself has a very eloquent theory about why we are where we're at and why we have people trying to tell people who to vote for and why, and demonize one side, and why society in general is struggling the way that they are. So his whole take on it is that it's Marxism being repackaged from postmodernist ideology, repackaged, creating identity politics. Everybody is in their camps, either color of skin, your politics. It's all identity politics, and there's victims. Everyone's a victim, and it's all about the power structure. Someone's in power and someone's being victimized. But ultimately, Jordan Peterson believes it's ultimately a power grab in and of itself to take total control of the world through this means. And it doesn't look good for the everyday average citizen, as this ideology doesn't lend itself well for an individual, and it's an attack on the individual. But it's an ideology of the collective. We all have groupthink. We all think the same thing as a collective, and your mind is soluble, and so we can teach you these doctrines and have you come along, as long as we do it in the name of being safe and not offending people. And it's all sounds warm and fuzzy on the outside, but on the inside, it's very, very corrupt and toxic. So here you go. Well, instead of me continuing to ramble on, Jordan Peterson himself.
A very small proportion of extremely radical people have managed to grip the steering mechanisms of our large-scale social structures. It's like, were we asleep? And the answer is, yeah. That you fall asleep when things are too good for too long. So it's time to wake up, man. It's time to notice that the liberals that we're electing are not liberals. They're not even socialists. They're way the hell to the left of that. And so how did that happen? No one expected that. Oh yeah, that wasn't real communism. Yeah, we've seen a great example of that in Venezuela, where they put everybody on the kind of weight loss plan that's made the average citizen lose 20 pounds. Right? Everyone's starving in Venezuela. It's like, hey, look, another example of what wasn't real communism. So I know what that means. I've thought about that for years. When someone says that wasn't real communism, here's what it means. I am so narcissistic and arrogant and so convinced of the rightness of my ideology and of my moral purity that if I was the dictator of a communist state, the utopia would have come in as promised. That's what it means. That wasn't real communism. That's what that means. So when anyone ever says that, you think, oh boy, I've got your number now. I know what you think of yourself. You think that had you been Stalin, that there wouldn't have been so much blood. It's like, you think again. Besides, if you would have been the positive Stalin, let's say, one of the negative Stalins would have come along and killed you real quick. So don't be hypothesizing down that road too quickly. That's what they were, the useful idiots. And then, and Stalin killed all the old guard, all of them. It's like, you guys, you've done your part. All you are now is annoying and threatening. It's like, we'll just line you up and shoot you. Solzhenitsyn has done a perfectly fine job of documenting Lenin and Stalin's essential similarity of character, because people say, oh, well, the road Lenin was on, that would have been a good one, but it was perverted by Stalin. It's like, oh no, Stalin was Lenin's slightly more evil twin. And Lenin trained him anyways, because he'd set Stalin out to do all his dirty work, and Stalin learned how to do that real well. So there's no saying, oh yeah, well, it was a good idea to begin with, and Lenin was on the right track, but then it was a cult of personality. It's like, no, sorry guys, that isn't going to wash. But there's an idea that emerged in the West, and the idea is that the state is regulated by the ethic of the individual. And so that the individual has intrinsic value, and that value is predicated on the recognition of the individual's capacity to generate order out of chaos. And that's the identity with God that was implanted, so to speak, in human beings at the beginning of time, according to our founding, let's call them mythologies. There's something about that that's right. Now, if we lose that, we're going to suffer for it, man. We're going to suffer for it. And I've studied totalitarianism for a long time. I know what happens when things take a viciously communitarian twist. It is not pretty. And people think our society is more, even the radical leftists who criticize it, think that our society is more robust and impervious to subversion and danger than it actually is. It's actually not. It's actually, we could lose it a hell of a lot more easily than we think. And it's got all sorts of flaws, and criticize away, but with a bit of gratitude, that would be nice. It's got all sorts of flaws, but we don't have anything better to put in its place. And when we tried a couple of different variations in the 20th century. Man, and that did not go very well. Now, if people want to bring that back, it's either because they don't know what happened, and they probably don't, because generally speaking, people's historical education is so dreadfully inadequate that it's actually, it's like a crime. Or they don't care, and what they're aiming for is trouble. And neither of those things are good. So, I've been watching this politically correct thing develop for 3 decades. It's popped its head up here and there. It happened really in the 1990s, in the early 1990s, but then it sort of faded away to some degree. But right now, man, it's back with a vengeance. In Bill C-16 in Canada, that's going to pass. And that is the first piece of legislation ever put in place in Canada that compels speech. And the Justice Minister curses on her head. The Justice Minister is refusing to, and her coterie of minions are refusing to implement a perfectly reasonable amendment that was proposed by Senator Don Plett to reword the Canadian Bill of Rights to ensure that Bill C-16 doesn't interfere with free speech. And they refused to do it. Why? Because equity trumps everything. Equality trumps everything. And that's not good, to put it simply. That is not good. And so people need to wake up and see what's happening. And they need to start watching what their children are being taught. That the new policies of the Ontario Teachers Federation, as I said, I've got the acronym wrong, those should be scrapped. I would tell people, do not send your children to public schools. If you're going to send them to public schools, you better bloody well keep an eye on what they're being taught. And I would say that's particularly true for communities of relatively conservative immigrants and minorities. Historically, they've been aligned, say, more with the Liberal Party in Canada because of its more tolerant attitude towards immigration. It's like, it's time for those relatively socially conservative ethnic immigration communities to wake up and realize that the people that they thought were their allies are not their allies at all. So, no, we're going too far down this road. It's not a good idea. And it's happening a lot faster than people think. So, it's time for people to wake up. Jesus, I've talked to the Conservatives, the leadership, many of the people who ran for the leadership federally. I've talked to the provincial Conservatives in Ontario. The provincial Conservatives were too afraid to have me come and talk to their caucus. Think about that. They think I'm too, because, you know, their theory, I guess this is Patrick Brown's strategy, is if they just shut the hell up and hide in a corner, Kathleen Wynne will flame out and they'll win the election. It's like, well, maybe and maybe not, but that's no strategy of courage. It's like the conservative types, even the liberals, the classic liberals, have to get out there and say, look, what's happening on the radical end of the political spectrum, that is not good. We need to do something about it. But they're too afraid. The conservatives are afraid that they will be targeted as individuals, mobbed by the social justice warriors online, and taken out. And so...
Yeah, and so he's talking about, obviously this interview was done quite a while ago, and Patrick Brown was the leader of the Conservatives in Ontario. Anyways, so again, a little bit of a political talk there as well, because the way you make these changes is through the political sphere, because you have to make laws and make regulations and make policies, and that's the way you change countries, is through its politics, right? But you also get into its education. You get into every institution. So what ends up happening is all the institutions are hijacked by these people who have these ideologies. It's a few people at the top that control it, but then once you teach it through the institutions and you make it systemic, as we like to hear so much, you put it in the systems, you put it ingrained in the culture of all the institutions, and it happens over a slow period of time. And you hijack all of the ground roots movements, and then you make them yourself. You make them part of your agenda. You just hijack them. You get in there and you make them about you, and you add it to all of your movements, and the end result is that you have total power, and that's the result. This has been going on for quite some time. It's totally planned, and we're seeing it now. But this is what we can see some results already, because a lot of their ideologies have been institutionalized, and we see the results already. We just have to go downtown. We just have to go to the food bank. We just have to go into Emerge for a bit. We just have to listen in on what little Johnny is learning in school. We can kind of see what the end result is just from the society that we're becoming, and we're way on our way there now. I don't think there's a way back. We should fight tooth and nail, though, because like he said, once equity becomes the main thing and trumps everything else, and then it's whose definition of equity is going to be the thing. If someone has one definition of equity, but someone else has a different one, whoever's in charge gets to say what that definition is, right? It all started at the International Standards Organization. I would say that, and some others as well. Wasn't there that? There's so many historical meetings and interesting. That's Noel. Thanks, Noel, for that. And there's so many things we can point to in history where there's been some major leaps forward in that agenda kind of thing in our society, and now they're going for it. And we'll be having some insight into that in subsequent shows this week, showing the whole totalitarian power grab of the world, how it was, designed. And even in Sudbury, we have the UN, through organizations like the UN, where the UN is basically given its suggestions for smaller towns and urban centers. And someone said on the show yesterday, why reinvent the wheel? Why not just adopt the UN's ideas of how to conduct ourselves in a city? Well, there's also a grassroots movement now to kind of take that out of our municipalities while we were asleep, while things were happening, while things were good. This kind of hijacking has been taking place, and now we're kind of waking up to the results of what we get after the hijacking takes place. So anyways, that's your Sudbury News Talk right here on CKLU 96.7 FM. It's all the time we have for today. Stay tuned now for Earshot Daily on CKLU. We'll be back same time, same place, God willing, tomorrow. So stay tuned for that, and make sure to like, share, follow, subscribe. All of these things that we can still do, and hopefully we'll be able to do. As long as we can do it, we'll be here. So thanks everyone for commenting and being part of the show, and hopefully we'll see you same time, same place tomorrow. Have a great one, everyone. Ciao.
is Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.